I think we'll just get started if that's okay, Nick.
Yep.
I just want to give you a warm welcome to the first of our workshops. Welcome to Nick Gibson, who's going to present. He's the Head of Education and Research at NTT Data Solutions. I think throughout the day and morning we've heard about so much change and so much going on, and Nick's going to give us some insight into how we think about and consider things and how we support our institutions when we're experiencing such huge change and continual change as well. So thank you, Nick, if you'd like to take it away.
Karen, thank you very much. Just a couple of sentences. As Nick Gibson, as Karen said, we at NTT work where the main HE partner for SAP solutions, which cover most of the main business admin systems within the university. I've been within the sector for about 25 years, and this is probably the most unusual, different, and potentially exciting time of all of our lives. So, if if I could move this slide on, please. I'm just checking to see how long it takes for the slides to change. Annabelle, have you moved the slide? Because I'm still looking at the. Oh, right. So this is really based on some, based on many conversations with institutions who are all facing similar shifts in requirements, but also different depending on each individual's institution's perspective. So if we move on, the next slide, please. Just as a tiny little bit of scene setting, historically, it's probably fair to say that universities largely were focused around the student experience, student satisfaction, competing on an international stage, student retention. It was very, very much the if you like the main focus of most institutions. If we take one more step, what has changed hugely in the last few years is that if you look back historically, universities, nice campuses, lots of facilities to use, good employers, and each job that was advertised could potentially have hundreds of applicants, all who liked working on campus. With the pandemic, that's completely changed. So staff now are looking for a different work-life balance. There's a huge competition for staff. Staff satisfaction is very important, and not to be measured by an annual global staff survey, but actually with people working from home or working from anywhere in the world, it's vitally important to understand how individual staff members are feeling, and sort of new motivations are required. So staff satisfaction is as important as student satisfaction, but most institutions historically have not put so much focus on it because there was always plenty of staff who wanted to work in the institution. And as I think has been mentioned in every session so far, one thing that has happened in the last few years is that it's been proven that institutions can change very quickly because they have to. But now we're in a situation where there's more change is required than there's ever been before. It all needs to be faster than it's ever been before. So we need to see faster returns from the investments that institutions make, shorter evaluations, shorter implementations, and a much quicker delivery of benefit. At a time when also funds are not unlimited. So huge sort of fundamental drivers for change in the institution. And if we move on, these are just some comments that sort of I've picked up, and I won't go through reading them, but it's some of the comments iterate what I've just actually said, that managing, recruiting, retaining staff is as important as that for students. It's all about the best experience. People are now deciding where they're going to study on a more global basis, So there's a lot of the functions and capabilities need to be delivered in a very different way. Running a series of courses online is not just a case of running them as historically was done and then just putting it onto the internet. Everything has to be reconsidered and actually replanned. So huge amount of change. There's a huge demand for good data and analytics to help institutions decide what they're going to do next, the order of priorities, what is most important. And the other thing is that there's a massive change to looking at analyzing data over a much shorter period of time, because basing decisions on data collected over 10 years is less valuable these days, because anything that happened more than 3 or 4 years ago is probably largely irrelevant. It's certainly very, very different to the world we're in. The other thing, which I'm sure already been mentioned, is staff are looking for a much better experience from the systems they use to do their job, and because they're working, they want to determine where they're going to work. Everything needs to be much more self-explanatory and much easier to operate. So I've seen some examples recently where institutions have advertised jobs, perhaps had 200 applicants. When people have realised it requires on-campus working, those 200 applicants have gone down to zero in some cases. Most people seem to be happy to work 2 days a week on campus, but more than that, the numbers of people that are interested tend to drop. So huge amount of change around the way institutions support the whole of business operation. If I step onto another slide. So if everything's changed and the systems that we need to support the institution need to change, to quote Albert Einstein, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So the way we've done things historically has to change. So if we move on to the next slide, just some thoughts about that. In the new world, having been very quick and agile during the pandemic, we're looking at new system replacements, which are probably needed across all of the main business functions in universities. Evaluations still take too long. Implementations are still taking too long, and in many cases take so long that people give up. So there's still a lot of lessons to be learned to provide quick solutions to institutions' new needs and new demands. So, suppliers are developing HE good practice templates, but in a lot of cases during the evaluation phase, people talk about them, but then when it comes to actual implementation, they're not used. There's a lack of using sort of fit to standard, with a lot of institutions still thinking we're different, we're special, and in some ways they are, but in many ways institutions do work very similarly, and aligned to that is the need to transform. So quite often, there's a decision from the top that we need to transform, but actually delivering that and stopping the reversion to the old way of working is very tough, and so we're seeing not enough transformation. And one of the things I'm just going to touch on with some examples in the next few minutes is what we call in the tanker approach versus the speedboat approach. So a lot of institutions are embarking on major business administration implementations, be it for student systems, for HR payroll, for research, or for finance, and they're being managed as a single big system implementation. In many cases, actually taking 4 or 5 years, which is far too long. And during that time, nothing else is done. because all resources are being put onto the major implementation. So one of the things I'm just going to touch on some examples here is how, if you like, speedboat implementations, so small implementations of functionality, capability, can be provided to give quick wins, to help improve student satisfaction, staff satisfaction, and actually keep the momentum going and keep the positivity going. So as I say, just some examples I'm going to mention now. I'm going to attempt to use a few different media to brighten things up, and then very interested to throw open to the floor for some questions and ideas. So if we move on to the next slide. One of the things that we're starting to see in a big way is members of staff, whether it's professional or academic, starting to travel again. I was actually just saying that last week was out all week at 2 HE conferences, and it's starting to happen again. There's a recognition that it's how people exchange academic information, how they learn, how they share to improve processes. So a lot of people are traveling, and within the higher education sector, the way expenses are managed is different to the commercial world. That's important to recognise, but also it needs to be easy to use. It needs to be efficient. Staff need to feel comfortable about using them, whilst at the same time collecting the information and analytics needed for the green agenda and sort of measuring that side of things. So this is just an example of something that can be implemented in literally a few weeks that can deliver a lot of benefit and positivity to staff. So if we move on to the next slide and then just click on the arrow, hopefully.
Hi there, my name's Connor and I need to take a trip to Washington DC on behalf of the university for the project that I'm working on, and I'm now going to show you how I've captured my expenses using SAP Concur and show you just how easy it is to capture expenses on the go. Here I am, just arrived at George Washington University on campus. I'm just about to head off to my meeting with my fellow academics for the research project that I'm working on. I'm going to head off to them and afterwards I'll be getting some lunch. I'll see you soon. After having some lunch, all I had to do was open the Concur application, take a picture of the receipt, which then created an expense and added it to the claim for me. Hey guys, just about to kick off the second day. Learnt loads yesterday, fantastic day. Going to be heading in shortly and see what's got in store. I've just bought a copy, I'll take a picture of the receipt, use it through Concur. So that's it guys, my trip's come to an end. It was great meeting with my peers out here, working on the research project together. It's been really beneficial, it's definitely progressing forward, but unfortunately it's time to head home now. So I've managed to catch some of the sights. Now I'm going to head back to the airport and we'll see you for the next leg of the journey. Now that my trip's over and I've collected all my spend into the same claim, all I have to do now is go through and make any adjustments and actions that I need to. After that, all I have to do is click submit and then go straight to my manager for approval.
just received Connor's claim for approval. Let's take a look. Quite happy with this? Yeah, and I'm going to approve. Done.
So that's it, guys. Concur allowed me to catch up all my spend whilst on the go, out and about on my travels, and get paid really simply and really quickly. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. So just can we just pop back one? So just a couple of things. Potentially, as happened in that case, hotel bills, taxi fares, etc., all automatically loaded into the system. The system knows the type of travel and therefore can record all the details for any offsetting that the university may want to do. It makes it very easy for the end user, and potentially payment can be made very quickly. Although we are aware that some people actually like to save their expenses up to certain times of the year, so they get sort of all the funds coming through in one go. But huge amount of flexibility, ease of use, leads to sort of happy customers, if you like, or happy staff, and that can be delivered very, very quickly. So very important also for guidance and oversight and control. And if we move on to the next slide, as well as that, there's cost savings, time savings, and because it's delivered very quickly, there's a very good return on investment. So it's just an idea of something that can be delivered standalone or in parallel with anything that's major being implemented at the same time. If we move on for another quick example, is around, we mentioned staff around sort of talent. Now, obviously, every institution will have its own HR and payroll solutions, but what we also can do, and if we move on to the next slide as an example, if we have a solution such as the SuccessFactors suite, which has each of these talent modules that can be implemented as part of a major system implementation, or can be added individually in front of existing HR systems to give quick improvements, help. So very quickly you get a new recruiting system up and running at a time when recruitment is very important and systems need to be better. Also onboarding, performance and goals or appraisals. So if there's a couple more builds at the bottom. So just if we can click this, and one more. Examples of how a small bit of functionality can be delivered, as I say, in parallel with or in advance of a new major HR payroll solution. Another example of a speedboat type approach. I'm going to move on to one more, and just looking at sort of using the automation of and using electronic assistance and surveys to also help keep staff satisfaction, and by using surveys, etc. Keep measuring staff satisfaction. So if we click onto the next, and one more. So while this is running, I'll talk over it, but one of the things that can be delivered very quickly is by using chatbots, as we're saying here. Individuals who are maybe coming, in this example, coming back to the office for the first time, or just have got general queries because they're not working on campus all the time, can have very easy to use automated services, just answering questions they may have. And this is relevant not just for new staff, but also for established staff who are working in a very, very different way. What we've done in this example is to also link in surveys. So here we're using the Qualtrics surveying tool, which is used by many institutions. So just check that how people are coping and how people feel. Please move on from that. So that was just a quick example. One of the big things we're seeing change is historically, not just universities, but a lot of organisations, a staff survey would be something that happened for everyone at a certain time of the year. Whereas what we saw there was examples of, depending on individual questions or individual experiences or individual problems that someone might be finding, the system is saying, just need to check that this person is happy on this, that, or the other function. I've just seen difficult to hear over the video. Yeah, apologies for that. And now I'm going to move on to one more example. And this is interesting in that with the shortage of staff, and this is across institutions in all fields. So, I know universities that are struggling to retain enough gardening staff and maintenance staff. Also, many campus universities have lots and lots of large buildings with lots of members of staff in, and actually having or staffing up to have a receptionist available is becoming virtually impossible. And for anyone turning up at a building for the first time, and you've just got a telephone and you don't know who to ring and you don't know where they are, it's very difficult. But people do like to engage with someone who they can talk to. So just going to show an example of a digital assistant, which is a digital human. So it's someone who, or it's an automated avatar that people can relate to, but also can recognize people who've been to the building before, and recognize emotions. So just as a very quick example, if we go onto the next screen and press the button at the top.
Hi, I was told there's an electrical problem in the building.
Well, my own circuits are feeling great, but I guess it can't be all about me, right? We do have 354 other devices in the building. Here's an electrical layout of our facilities, so you can see where the problem is. I've contacted the facilities manager to let them know you're here. Can I get you a soy milk non-froth macchiato? That's the one electricians normally get.
Yes, please.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
If we can move on. Apologies for the Scandinavian humour. that was from it's our Danish innovation office that have are working on these digital humans. It's already won awards. One of the award-winning example was of an avatar helping children learn to read, which there seem to be huge benefits. This technology can be used, I believe, in all sorts of different ways within universities, just to take the pressure off. Interesting enough, Krifa, and that is their logo. It's not partly truncated on the right hand side, is a trades union in Denmark, and their receptionist actually approached the trades union and said, look, this job is tedious beyond comparison, and we shouldn't be doing this. We should be doing something far more useful and constructive. This could be automated. And so it's interesting that one of the first customers in Denmark was a trades union who replaced their receptionists with digital humans at the request of the receptionists, who are now doing something far more useful and valuable. If we move on again. So really, there's just some ideas there, and so one of the questions I'll be asking is around what's happening within your institution. What do you think these technologies could do to help your institution. So as a call to action, first one, we all need to think differently, think outside the box, considering speedboat type projects that can be delivered quickly, that will still deliver significant transformation, and importantly, consider them projects that can actually run in parallel with major implementations, breathe life into existing legacy systems, but most important of all is to continue to motivate and attract both staff and students. And then the second action, we just is by looking to do multiple things rather than have the whole institution concentrating on one big single administrative project, which overruns and then nothing ends up getting done by many years, is to take multiple approaches, multiple strands, so that as we're saying here, the institution hasn't put all its eggs in one basket, so that in parallel with this, new types of solution are required, such as using chatbots and digital humans, and the evaluations and implementations of these projects, small projects, need to change as well, need to be far more agile. Okay, so if we skip on at that point, thank you ever so much for your time. The idea was really to get some input and some thoughts. And yeah, I like the comment, concur is super easy. I appreciate that. But I will stop talking now, and importantly, just call for any input, any thoughts.
Yep, I don't have any Q&As just yet, but it's really interesting, and I think the importance of being nimble and agile is so great just now. And when I was looking at your travel expenses, my heart just sank because we've just put in a new system. And it's the biggest complaint that we get because it is just turgid. Mm-hmm. And in terms of time it takes to complete and reflect. So I think the importance of agile systems as well, and it doesn't all have to be the same, it can be different. It's really important. It's something that definitely I will take away to look at.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody else has any questions, if they want to put in the chat or any. I can't see anything coming through.
Oh, hang on, there's one coming.
Wait a minute. There we go. Can you see that, Nick?
So, yes, Alison, that is that's a really interesting question, because definitely things have changed. Yeah, I remember most of my life, when you went to university, you walked down the corridor and you could see everyone. There's rows and rows of people. Nowadays, people will be working from all around the world, and as a manager, just checking on people is much harder. As an institution, understanding how people feel, and I think the other thing is that a lot of previously staff were attracted by the campus, the sports facilities, all sorts of different reasons. But if there's a lot more people remote working, institutions are going to have to find different ways of relating to their staff, motivating their staff, and looking after their well-being and care. So I think HR departments are going to have to completely change their way of operation, and they're going to demand much more investment from the institution into the systems that support that. And I think that, how that unfolds will continue to change for a while. I think we've got another one, I think, have we?
Yeah. Can you see that, Nick?
Oh yes. Okay, these are great questions. Not easy, but they are great questions. And I think this is one of the challenges. And we're all we're seeing this in a lot of places. That corporate-looking innovation. I mean, one of the interesting examples is around the expenses side. The example I showed, that expense system comes with something like automatic access to about 200 apps. But a lot of institutions don't provide mobile phones for their staff. And staff have said, well, in that case, I'm not going to use my mobile phone. So having all these apps automatically updating my expense system is irrelevant. So I think there's going to need to be a mind shift, both from the institution side and from the staff side, because everything's different. And the younger generation coming through will expect things that the dangerous older generation may not be so comfortable with for historical reasons. So I think how will HE employees react? I think very differently, depending on their background and their use of technologies, and also whether they've joined because they wanted to work on campus, which many did, but won't be the case going forward. So I think we've got a huge, exciting period of change, but not without its challenges. Any more?
We do have one more. I will.
Right. Yes. So at the moment, we're actually looking for the first universities. There's a lot of interest, and we're just talking to some about how they'd like to start it and pilot it. One's talking about doing something in the Students' Union. Yeah, so there's all sorts of different examples. We've got some universities in the US who are actually already doing some work, some very interesting work around a whole range of different approaches, right the way through to sort of working with bereavement counselling, which is probably really pushing the boundaries back. But yes, not in the UK, we've got people who are looking at where to start, but no one has actually has done it yet. And so, yeah, if anyone's at an institution where they think someone would like to start, give me a call. Gosh, we've got 5 minutes to go, I think.
We've got 5 minutes, unless people. I'm just checking the chat because there was some new chat as well, but there's not anything in terms of. Any more questions? Anything that desperate to know?
Well, I was going to say, if anyone has got any questions that come to them later or wants to find out more about any of those things, please get in contact with me. From my perspective, thank you ever so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick, for giving your time to the conference and to the workshop. And I'm sure you've given us lots of things to think about and ideas. And if you do get a UK university that's going to do digital humans, I'd be very interested to see how it goes.
Okay. We'll stay in contact then.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. That's great.